my pleasure to call today's hearing to order on the nomination of the Honorable Christy Goldsmith Romero, Kristin Johnson, Summer Mersinger, and Caroline Pham to serve as commissioners of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. Welcome to the nominees, and I have to say, to begin, I can't think of a better way to start Women's History Month, but celebrating these strong, competent women. It's a pleasure to have all of you here today and to have your families with you. The CFTC has gone far too long without its full complement of commissioners. Today's hearing for 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans is an important step toward getting this financial watchdog back to its full capacity. It's critical that we confirm these nominees without delay. The invasion of Ukraine has led to price volatility in wheat and other agricultural markets, and there are reports that U.S. efforts to limit Russia's access to capital may be undermined by the use of unregulated crypto markets. A fully operational commission will help to ensure that our agricultural producers have the tools they need to manage these and other price risks. And we look forward to working with the Commission to bring appropriate oversight for the trading of digital assets. These nominees are extremely qualified, and each would bring a unique perspective to their work at the Commission, making them well-suited to address these new challenges. Inspector General Goldsmith Romero has investigated financial fraud, most recently as the Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, a position to which the Senate confirmed her by voice vote. Ms. Johnson is a professor and internationally recognized expert in financial markets, including on fintech and risk management. Ms. Mersinger worked in leadership roles at the Commission and here in the Senate. And Ms. Pham began her career at the Commission and has significant experience implementing financial market reforms in the private sector. They are also, as I said, making history. The committee is reviewing the nomination of 4 women from both sides of the aisle, 2 of them women of color, to our country's preeminent financial regulator. I should say one of them. I guess banking might argue with that, but I think it's the premier. So our financial markets must work for everybody. So it's critical that our leaders bring different backgrounds and experience to the important job of protecting our markets and those who use them. As we saw at our hearing on digital assets, there's broad bipartisan interest and industry support for greater oversight of the digital asset marketplace. Making the financial system more accessible to the average American must go hand in hand with appropriate consumer protections. As we think about federal regulation for digital assets and we think about what they should look like, we're going to lean on the leadership and experience of the Commission. And I trust that the CFTC can rise to the challenge. But we must give the CFTC additional resources if we are to give it more authority over our digital assets. We can't repeat the mistakes of Dodd-Frank and give the CFTC more responsibility without an appropriate increase in funding. We also need to make sure our financial markets can respond to the escalating risks posed by the climate crisis. The derivatives markets will play an important role in the transition to a carbon-neutral economy, whether to protect against extreme weather events or help farmers generate income from implementing climate-smart agricultural practices. All 4 nominees have support from a broad range of stakeholders across the financial and agricultural sectors. And I would ask unanimous consent that a letter indicating that, describing this support, be entered into the record. Without objection, so ordered. With that, I will now turn to my friend and our ranking member, Senator Boozman, for his opening comments.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm pleased to join with you today in welcoming each of our nominees to the committee as we consider their nominations to be commissioners of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I congratulate all of you on your nomination and your willingness to serve our country. The four of you bring diverse experiences and a broad range of knowledge that will add value to the Commission. It's certainly worth repeating that today's hearing is historic in that not only are we considering four highly qualified nominees, but four highly qualified female nominees, which is something we should all be very proud of. I commend and congratulate all of you on this achievement. If confirmed, each of our nominees will set the tone and direction of a vital agency that regulates a wide range of financial products that are essential tools used by end users like farmers, ranchers, municipalities, and pension funds to hedge commercial risk. Beyond legacy commodity contracts that market participants have used for centuries to manage risk, these markets have also grown to include derivative contracts on interest rates, stock indexes, foreign currency, and even digital assets like Bitcoin futures. The CFTC also has the authority to bring enforcement actions in cases of fraud and manipulation in commodity cash markets. While digital assets and distributed ledger technology are revolutionizing financial transactions and the way people manage their money, questions remain as to the proper role federal regulators should play in encouraging further innovation in digital assets while ensuring market participants are protected. Our nominees will play a pivotal role as Congress, with input from stakeholders, consumers, and industry, navigate a path forward. To each nominee, I look forward to hearing your goals and your visions for what you hope to accomplish at CFTC should you be confirmed, particularly as it pertains to engaging with other financial regulators and providing guidance to Congress regarding what, if any, expanded role regulators should have over digital asset commodity spot markets as we debate the guardrails that could be implemented. Like any agency, I believe the CFTC functions best when it is fully operational and with a full slate of commissioners. I'm glad we can hold this hearing today, and I look forward to getting you all in place soon so that we can ensure that the markets you regulate continue to operate effectively and in a fair and transparent manner. With that, I yield back.
Well, thank you very much. And let me now officially introduce each of our four nominees. First, Christy Goldsmith Romero is the Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, where she leads an independent office conducting investigations and audits of federal programs. She has served in this role since her Senate confirmation in 2012. Inspector General Goldsmith Romero previously worked at the Securities and Exchange Commission, where she investigated securities violations in the Division of Enforcement and served as counsel to two SEC chairs. She's an adjunct professor at the Georgetown Law Center and University of Virginia School of Law, where she teaches courses on securities regulation, cryptocurrency regulation, and federal oversight. Inspector General Goldsmith Romero received her undergraduate degree from Old Dominion University and her law degree from Brigham Young University. And now I'm going to turn to Senator Warnock to introduce our next nominee.
Well, thank you so very much, Chair Stabenow. It's my pleasure to welcome a Georgian to the Agriculture Committee today as a nominee to the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. I should say that we have many great colleges and universities in Georgia. In fact, I heard that Senator Coach Tuberville would be here, so I brought my University of Georgia mug just for him. But Kristin Johnson is a professor at one of our other great universities, Emory University School of Law in Atlanta, Georgia. She has over a decade of experience teaching corporate securities and banking law. But in addition to her academic work, Ms. Johnson has worked in the private sector. She has a practical view of banking and securities law to complement her academic expertise. So she brings both a theoretical framework grounded in practical understanding. If confirmed, she will be useful at the CFTC and to the nation. So we're very proud of her. She's a proud Georgian. And Chair Stabenow, you'll be happy to know that my constituent also has Michigan ties.
I noticed that.
She's a proud graduate of the University of Michigan Law School. So, Ms. Johnson, congratulations on your nomination, your hard work across the years, and thank you for being here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And now Senator Thune will make an introduction.
Thank you, Chair Stabenow and Ranking Member Bozeman, for holding this hearing. Thanks to all the nominees for your willingness to serve. As Chair, you and Senator Bozeman have pointed out in your opening statements, this is a critically important agency with a wide swath of jurisdiction in areas that are critically important to our economy. And obviously, coming from an agricultural state, we all recognize the role that the CFTC plays in helping our farmers and ranchers manage risk and having oversight over so many of the issues that they deal with on a daily basis. So thank you all for your willingness to serve. And it is my privilege today to introduce Summer Mersinger, who's been nominated to serve as a commissioner at the CFTC. I've had the privilege of knowing Summer for more than 20 years. She grew up in Oneida, South Dakota, where her family continues to run a diversified row crop operation. Went on to study political science at the University of Minnesota. And after she graduated, I got to know her when she moved to Washington, D.C. to work on my staff back in the U.S. House of Representatives. After stints on my campaign and in the private sector, Summer then came with me to the Senate to serve as a member of my staff. And while serving on my staff in the Senate and starting a family, she pursued a law degree, attending evening classes at Catholic University's Columbia School of Law, where she received her law degree in 2007. She became my deputy chief of staff, general counsel, before joining the Smith-Free Group, where she worked on a range of issues in the private sector, from cyber security to tax policy. But while serving on my staff, working full-time, raising kids, and going to law school in the evening, I think is great evidence of the powerful work ethic that she brings to this job. In 2019, she joined then CFTC Chairman Tarbert's staff as Director of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs, and then went on to become Commissioner Stump's Chief of Staff, a role which she holds today. All of that you can read in her bio. And given her educational background and experience, it's clear that she's prepared for this role today. But I think it's important for members of the committee to know, as we consider her nomination, that she approaches issues with an open mind. She is a critical thinker. She's a problem solver. She's fair. She's honest. She's a woman of integrity, and the CFTC and our United States government could be so lucky as to have someone of her not only caliber but character to serve in the government, and we're lucky that people like her answer that call. I know her husband, Pat, who is here today, and her 4 children, Sienna, Sydney, Wyatt, and Drake, are all incredibly proud of her, as I am, and I think all South Dakotans are as well. So, Summer, congratulations on your nomination. And Madam Chair, I look forward to considering all these nominations and to soon having a full commission in place at the CFTC. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Thune, and I couldn't agree more. So thank you very much. And our final nominee is Caroline Pham, Managing Director at Citi, where she's held various senior roles, including as a global head of compliance, deputy head of global regulatory affairs, and head of market structure for strategy initiatives in Citi's institutional clients group. She has also represented Citi on the executive committee of the Chamber of Digital Commerce. Ms. Pham was a visiting fellow at the George Washington University Center for Law, Economics, and Finance. Prior to joining Citi, Ms. Pham served as special counsel and policy advisor to former CFTC Commissioner Scott O'Malley. She received her undergraduate degree from UCLA and her law degree from George Washington University. So, thanks to each of you for joining us here today. I look forward to discussing more your visions for the commission And if you would each rise, we have 2 official questions that we need to ask you. First, Inspector General Goldsmith Romero, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Mersinger, and Ms. Pham, 2 questions. First of all, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. And secondly, do you agree that if confirmed, you will appear before any duly constituted committee of Congress if asked to appear? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Your testimony will be made part of the record in its entirety, and we will now begin with our 5-minute opening statements from each of you. We'll start with Inspector General Goldsmith Romero.
Chairman Stabenow, Ranking Member Bozeman, members of the committee, it's my honor to appear before you today, and I'm deeply grateful to President Biden for nominating me to be a commissioner at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I'm pleased to recognize my wife, Adrienne, my 3 daughters, Kelsey, Brooke, and Julia, and my son-in-law, Seth. We're a close-knit family, and they are my foundation and my joy. I also want to recognize my parents and my in-laws and my siblings who have all been very supportive of me. I also have to recognize and thank everyone past and present at my current office, SIGTARP. They are public servants that are dedicated to making a difference. I come from a military family who raised me to have a sense of duty and service to others. My father joined the U.S. Navy as a young man in the Philippines. He became a U.S. citizen and served our country for 20 years. My brother Scott has served in the U.S. Army Reserves for 34 years, and they have inspired me in my 20 years of federal service. The CFTC's mission is to promote the integrity, resilience, and vibrancy of U.S. derivatives markets through sound regulation. This mission contributes to U.S. markets being the strongest and safest in the world. Whether focused on hard commodities like agriculture, energy, or metals, or on the financial sector, the Commission plays a critical role in ensuring that these markets work well. That starts with agriculture. Farmers, ranchers, and producers that our nation depends on to put food on our tables and help drive our economy. They need U.S. derivatives markets to work for risk management and price discovery. And this requires the CFTC to fulfill its mission, which is a mission that I take to heart. I've spent my career helping protect our markets. At the Securities and Exchange Commission, I work to promote market integrity and protect investors in the Enforcement Division. As counsel to SEC Chairman Cox and Shapiro, I helped them oversee markets during a national crisis. Through 3 administrations, I have served as the Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program at Treasury, helping our economy recover after the financial crisis. With 465 criminal prosecutions, 25 civil enforcement actions, $11.3 billion recovered, and hundreds of recommendations to improve government, SIGTARP helps safeguard our markets and financial system, and it will forever have been my privilege to have served as its leader. I'm also an adjunct law professor at University of Virginia and Georgetown, where I teach on securities and cryptocurrencies. If confirmed, my highest priority would be to ensure that these markets are working well, that they are open, fair, and competitive. I would prioritize identifying and mitigating risks to these markets, and I would promote a culture of compliance coupled with strong enforcement. I will work to protect markets and customers against fraud and manipulation, just as I have done throughout my career. As our markets evolve with digital assets and climate, regulators must be thoughtful and deliberate. It is important to learn the facts, listen to all sides, understand the consequences of any action, and collaborate with other regulators. My parents instilled in me the values of listening and respecting others. I will make it a priority to engage with end users, and I am committed to working with you. Serving my country is my way of giving back to a country that has given my family so many opportunities. I have broad and deep experience in protecting our markets, and it would be my honor and privilege to use that experience as a CFTC commissioner. I commit to do all that I can to promote the integrity, resilience, and vibrancy of our markets so they continue to be the strongest and safest in the world. Thank you for this honor.
Thank you very much. And we'll now hear from Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairwoman Stabenow, Ranking Member Bozeman, and other distinguished members of this committee for holding this hearing today. I also want to thank President Biden for nominating me to serve as a CFTC Commissioner at this critical time for global markets and our nation. I also want to thank Senator Warnock for his very generous introduction. Finally, I'd like to thank the committee members and their staffs for their assistance during this nomination process. My family arrived in the Midwest in the early 1800s and settled in a small town on the Wabash River. They started small businesses and served as civil servants, legal advocates, teachers, and nurses. They volunteered to serve our nation in times of war and peace. My sisters and I inherited this commitment to public service. We were raised in faith and embraced values like hard work, honesty, and integrity. And we enjoyed the sense of infinite possibilities that America provides. I developed an interest in finance as a student at Georgetown University. After graduating, I worked as an analyst at an investment bank supporting investment portfolios for universities and charitable endowments, public and corporate pension plans, hospitals, and other large institutions. I went on to the University of Michigan Law School and there served as an editor on the Michigan Law Review. I clerked for a federal judge, and I practiced law in the New York and London offices of a large law firm. Later, I served as vice president and assistant general counsel at one of the largest financial institutions in the country. Today, I serve as the Asa Griggs Candler Professor of Law at Emory University Law School. For many years, my work has focused on risk management oversight, understanding financial crises, and protecting the economy from these disruptive events. My current work examines emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence and blockchain technologies, that facilitate the creation of cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency trading platforms. Our futures and derivatives markets are globally preeminent. In the domestic economy, markets impact the lives of many Americans, influencing the cost of energy resources used to heat homes, fuel transport, cultivate crops, and manufacture goods. It is critical that these markets work effectively. After the financial crisis of 2008, Congress adopted the Dodd-Frank Act, expanding the CFTC's authority to implement reforms that increase transparency and liquidity and mitigate risks in previously unregulated swaps markets. While these are important accomplishments, much work remains. Markets increasingly face new challenges, including a global health crisis, concerning geopolitical events, and cyber threats. During crises, the CFTC's role protecting market integrity is even more critical because many, including farmers, ranchers, grain elevator operators, producers, and distributors, rely on derivatives markets to determine prices and manage risk. If confirmed, I will support the CFTC in its mission to ensure orderly trading and liquidity, as well as customer protection, fairness, and transparency in futures and derivatives markets. New technologies expand the financial market ecosystem, promising to increase access to markets, enhance transparency and efficiency, and reduce the time and costs needed to execute transactions. These developments include platforms that operate without centralized intermediaries, smart contracts, blockchain technology, quantum and cloud computing, and automated trading, among others. With a few quick taps, for example, retail investors may quickly and easily download smartphone apps that execute complex, leveraged digital asset transactions. Yet new products and platforms face growing concerns. Data breaches, Ocean's 11 and Bonnie and Clyde-styled heists, and cyber attacks that threaten to disrupt markets. In addition, in these markets, there may be low or no visibility and uncertainty regarding customer protections. Public service is the highest calling. To that end, I will maintain an open door. I look forward to visiting with market participants to better understand their concerns. If confirmed, I will offer my experience and expertise in service of ensuring the CFTC's continued leadership in fostering responsible innovation and open, fair, and competitive and financially sound markets. Before closing, I wish to acknowledge the love and support of my family and friends, and in particular, my son, Jackson, for his patience as I endeavor to be in service to others. I also want to thank my parents. Their hard work and sacrifices paved the way for me to be here today. Thank you again for the honor to appear before you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so very much. Ms. Mersinger.
Chairwoman Stabenow, Ranking Member Bozeman, and distinguished members of this committee. It's a true honor to be here today, and I'm humbled by this opportunity to share with you my background and experience as you consider my nomination as a commissioner at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I want to say a special thank you to Senator Thune for that wonderful intro. The work ethic and the integrity and the desire to serve that you described, I believe, come from my years of learning directly from you, so thank you. With the start of Women's History Month, I cannot think of a better way to celebrate the legacy of the many women who made important contributions to this great nation than sitting here at this table with these three impressive ladies. Christy, Kristin, and Caroline, I have enjoyed every minute of this journey with you. I already consider you friends, and if we are confirmed, I know you will be exceptional colleagues. I am also honored and grateful to have my family and friends supporting me through this process. My husband, Patrick, is here with me today. While some may say it takes a village to raise children, I say it takes a Patrick. I am so grateful for his love, patience, and endless support. My 4 children are also here with me today. Sienna, Sydney, Wyatt, and Drake, I have 2 important messages for you. First, I love you more than you will ever know. And second, I am sorry for making you dress up today. I promise when you get home you can change. To my family and friends watching from afar, thank you for everything. I'm incredibly blessed and my heart is full. I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you my background and experience which make me uniquely qualified to serve as a commissioner at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I grew up in central South Dakota where my dad still farms the land, growing wheat, sunflowers, corn, and soybeans. My parents started out working on a cattle ranch, working to save enough money to build their own farm operation. I wasn't exactly raised in a barn, but it was only a few yards from our house. Agriculture is a part of my heritage and it's in my DNA. In the late 1800s, my Eastern European ancestors homesteaded in the county where I grew up. I can only imagine what my ancestors must have felt looking out on the vast Dakota prairies, venturing into a new frontier in search of the American dream. I'm certain they were overwhelmed, but I also like to think they were excited by the opportunity to create a legacy for future generations. My background on the farm is only a small part of my story. After college, I spent over 15 years working on Capitol Hill for a distinguished member of this committee. My time on the Hill included a crash course in financial markets and regulation while managing these issues for the senator during the financial crisis of 2008. Over the last 2 years, I've had the good fortune of working at the CFTC for 2 amazing members of the commission. In my role as Director of Office of Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs under former Chairman Heath Tarbert, I was immersed in the Commodity Exchange Act, working in a bipartisan manner with House and Senate Agriculture Committees and staff to find common ground to reauthorize the agency. I also spent time coordinating with our appropriators to communicate the needs of the agency and work in a bipartisan, bicameral effort to secure the agency's annual budget requests. Most recently, I've had the honor of working for Commissioner Don Stump. In this role, I've engaged in detailed discussions with our enforcement team, had in-depth briefings from our policy divisions, discussed important workforce matters, and worked in a collaborative manner with Commission staff to reach compromises and agreements. I also had the incredible opportunity of serving as a designated federal officer for the Agricultural Advisory Committee. This advisory committee was critical at the height of the pandemic when unique supply chain issues disrupted many of our agricultural markets. The AAC was a way to communicate with the numerous stakeholders to hear real-time perspectives and to share with those stakeholders the actions we were taking at the CFTC to ensure markets continued to function in their role as reliable price discovery and risk management tools. Sitting here today with this group of amazing women, I like to think I'm experiencing at least some small part of what my ancestors felt so long ago. I believe the CFTC is starting a journey into a new frontier, and I'm excited about the opportunity to navigate this new territory should I be confirmed. This new frontier will be fertile ground for new innovation that will benefit our financial system and our economy as a whole. But reaping those benefits will also require managing risks and the hazards as we plow new ground. Should I be confirmed, I'm ready to use my background and experience to do my part in creating a legacy at the CFTC of fostering responsible innovation while ensuring integrity and resilience in our markets. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Pham.
Chairwoman Stabenow, Ranking Member Bozeman, and distinguished members of the committee, it's an honor to appear before you today. I'm humbled and grateful. My family made me who I am today. I want to thank my father, who taught me civic duty and started my journey here with my high school internship in the mayor's office. I want to thank my mother, who sacrificed her career for her children and told me to never let anyone hold me back. In America, I can do anything if I work hard enough, even grow up to be somebody like my grandfather, who was a governor and a judge. I want to thank my brothers, who always helped me get back up again when life knocks you down. And most of all, I want to thank my family in the room, especially my daughter, Eleanor. I'm a proud mama and hi to the 5th grade class of Pine Street School. I'd also like to thank my teachers, mentors, sponsors, and friends who saw potential in me and the impact I could make. I'd like to tell you my parents' story because it shows why serving my country is so personal to me. They were saved on the last day of the Vietnam War, April 30th, 1975, when they were airlifted by helicopter just after midnight from the roof of the U.S. Embassy by brave American diplomats and troops who risked their lives to help them. On that day, Saigon fell to the communists. Even though my mother was pregnant, my parents waited to leave because my father, an Army doctor and chief of a military hospital ward, wouldn't desert his patients and his post. Duty first. American troops made sure my parents were safely evacuated to the United States. My parents were first on a cargo ship with 3,000 other refugees where they stayed on deck under the sun and rain for 1 week before being taken to the Philippines. Then at Wake Island for a month, my father volunteered with the U.S. Navy and CDC doctors, even saving a 2-year-old's life. Then the U.S. Air Force flew them to Camp Pendleton, where they waited for what's next. Americans from every part of the United States, but especially Ag Country, showed up for them with kindness, generosity, and open hearts. My mother's wish is for me to honor their memory today. My parents first went to Elgin, North Dakota, where Mrs. Elizabeth Bede, wife of North Dakota State Senator Ralph Bede, warmly hosted them. Then Oakland University in Michigan. Next, in Needles, California, Mrs. Ann Advocate and the church welcomed my family. Then to New Jersey. Rural communities need doctors, and my family ended up in Modesto, California, where I was born. This story of my family and the fact that I'm here now shows why America is the greatest democracy of all. I want to give back to our heroes in uniform and the kind-hearted folks across this great nation who gave us a new life. Although I live in New York City now, my roots are important. Modesto's top ag products include milk, almonds, chickens, cattle, peaches, tomatoes, and of course, wine. When I was growing up, we owned orchards and I did 4-H, showing horses at the county and state fair. Organizations like the American Legion and our Rotary Club, where my father was president, instilled in me good citizenship and strong character and reputation. I was raised with values like fairness, integrity, loyalty, service, and helping others. 2 of my guiding principles are hard work and lifelong learning. I was studying at GW Law during the 2008 financial crisis and wanted to contribute in some way. I interned at the U.S. Court of Federal Claims and in enforcement at the CFTC, SEC, and the bank regulator, the OCC. It was then my privilege to work at the CFTC during Dodd-Frank with selfless public servants dedicated to safeguarding our markets. The CFTC raised me too, and it's part of my roots. My career and extensive experience, including hands-on implementation of regulatory reforms, has taken me around the world and shown me that it's critical that global markets are well-functioning and that there are clear rules of the road to facilitate compliance, promote market integrity, and foster innovation and growth. I'm still amazed at the power of strong leadership and in coming together to find common standards and common solutions. This is another inflection point where the world faces immense challenges, and the U.S., especially the CFTC, can build or reshape global financial market structure. I know firsthand the importance of a pragmatic approach and ensuring the protection of Americans and businesses that depend on our markets for risk management and price discovery. I thought that being promoted to managing director was going to be the highlight of my professional career. I now know that sitting here before you is, if confirmed, I'll work hard to get the job done. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We'll now go to a round of 5-minute questions from each member, and I have a couple of topics I'd like to ask each of you about. And the first is actually a very simple yes or no, and then I'd like to do a follow-up. But starting with Inspector General Goldsmith Romero, at this committee's recent digital assets hearing, all the witnesses advocated for greater federal oversight of the spot market for digital assets and stated the CFTC is well positioned to regulate the market. Simple question. Do you believe that today there is sufficient regulatory oversight of the spot digital asset market?
No, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
No, Chairwoman.
Yeah.
No, Chairman.
No, Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. Well, we're starting from agreement. This is good. So let me ask a follow-up to speak about the CFTC's positioning to regulate spot digital asset commodities. Do you think it's well positioned to do that? And could speak to that a moment?
Absolutely.
I would agree, yes.
Great.
I would agree as well.
Yes, Chairwoman.
Well, Senator Bozeman, I think we got some work to do with the commission, right? So great. Thank you very much. Let me now move to another really critical area of tremendous risk in many, many ways, and that's the climate crisis. Chair Benham has stated that climate change poses a major threat to the U.S. financial system, and other financial regulators have echoed that view. Do you agree? And if so, what will you do to help address this risk if confirmed? And let me start again with Inspector General Goldsmith Romero.
Thank you, Chairwoman, for that very, very important question. I do agree that there is a threat. I think the CFTC's role is to first understand that threat, understand the amount of risk, and to engage in that. And I would work with the chairman with that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the derivatives market provide an opportunity to hedge against that risk, particularly as we transition to a carbon neutral environment. And so these are the things I would focus on if I'm confirmed.
Yes. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, for that question. I would echo my fellow nominees' emphasis on the CFTC's role in this context. The markets that the CFTC oversees include derivatives that directly relate to these questions, but also registrants and others. In this context, the agricultural community, we can imagine as well, who regularly depend on derivatives to determine price and to manage and mitigate risk. So there are a number of constituents that are deeply impacted by severe weather events. The increased number of severe weather events and the frequency of those events is certainly of concern to all of them. And yes, I support Chair Benham and my fellow nominees and would look into this inviting conversation from all constituents.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mersinger.
Thank you for the question. Climate risk is one of the many risks that businesses need to prepare for. And I believe the CFTC's markets actually serve as a tool in this effort, and certainly in managing the risk that comes from extreme weather and climate, but also in managing transition risk as we try to move to a net zero economy. We already have some existing contracts trading in this area, and if confirmed, I look forward to working closely with Chairman Benham as he addresses this issue.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pham.
Chairwoman, it's a hard issue that needs to be thoughtfully studied. This impacts so many important stakeholders, from market participants to end users and up and down the value chain. With that level of scale and complexity, there's always the question of this risk, and I believe in the power of markets to provide solutions. There's opportunities here for innovation and new risk management products, and I'd like to point out that the CFTC has been doing that since day one.
Thank you. And finally, a question for Ms. Johnson on cybersecurity. We know that cyber attacks are becoming much more commonplace, and we're certainly hearing about this now in the context of what's happening internationally, and pose clear risks to our financial markets and our national security. How do you think the CFTC can most effectively monitor for cyber threats and keep them from disrupting our derivatives markets?
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Stabenow, for that question. This is a critical issue for our time and on this particular day for our nation and around the world. The threat is real, and there is a certainty of need for preparedness. Preparedness on the part of the agency in its ability to execute its mission and effectively oversee markets and ensure market integrity and stability. So therefore, we will continue to integrate 21st century technology within the agency to ensure preparedness and system safeguards of the agency's systems itself, but also engage continuously in communication and conversation with registrants and others. In periods of extreme disruption or high volatility, the CFTC is boots on the ground, the cop on the beat, if you will, and prepared in many instances to assist registrants with organizing resiliency, recovery programs. Each has indicated already to the CFTC and remains in conversation with the agency about day one plans for instances in which there are breaches or disruptions of service. I would like to commit to continue in that endeavor and support the chair and the agency in ensuring its systems preparedness as well as that of those operating in our markets.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn to Senator Boozman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the whole panel. I've heard from several ag interests that there's a perceived shift at the CFTC to become an agency which is heavy on enforcement. While I support punishing bad actors, I understand that enforcement continues to play a larger role at the CFTC, even in situations where violations are minor, unintentional, and could be easily corrected. If confirmed, could you commit to advocating that the Commission work with the market participants to proactively fix issues when violations are inadvertent and largely immaterial, and not automatically default to issuing fines and other penalties? In other words, more of a helpful attitude versus a gotcha attitude. And we'll start with the IG that deals with these things all the time.
Thank you, Ranking Member Boozman. Yes, I would commit to that.
Very good.
Thank you, Ranking Member Boozman. I would echo my nominee's commitment, but underscore that I strongly believe in robust enforcement and can imagine balancing that with ensuring or encouraging cultures of compliance at registered and entities subject to oversight.
Very good.
Yes, Senator Boozman, and I will always put agriculture first if confirmed.
I agree with my fellow nominees, Senator Boozman, and I think it's important that we provide regulatory clarity and guidance to our markets.
Very good. Again, this is another question for the panel, and I'd like for you to elaborate on it a little bit. I think it's important. It's estimated that Bitcoin and Ether, which have both been determined to be commodities, make up about 60% of the total aggregate value of cryptocurrency market cap. Beyond these two digital assets, do you believe it makes sense for CFTC to provide a list of guidance on which other digital assets it considers to be commodities? And let's start at the other end.
Senator, I appreciate the bipartisan and thoughtful engagement and support from the Ag committees on this critical issue. There have to be clear rules of the road to protect customers, and these markets can't grow fairly and responsibly without more clarity. So I would suggest that that's the approach that the Commission and the rest of the regulators in the U.S. and around the world provide on this. They're global markets, and it's important that the U.S. does not miss an opportunity to lead here and support U.S. businesses. I welcome the direction of the Congress on this, and if confirmed, we'll work with the chairman, my fellow commissioners, and the staff on tackling this. I will faithfully uphold the CFTC's mandate and defend its jurisdiction if necessary.
So would you consider providing a list of, in other words, determining the other entities besides Ether and Bitcoin as to whether or not they are commodities versus something else?
I think that providing a list can sometimes not keep up with the pace of innovation in new products, but I will point to the CFTC's method of self-certification new contracts, which I do think is well suited for new products.
Very good. Go ahead.
Thank you for that question, Senator Boozman. As far as a list as to what's a commodity or what's a security, I think we need to look beyond that, and we need to look at the markets. When doing so, we need to figure out a way to appropriately balance the many opportunities that these assets bring with the risks as well. And certainly, this is something where we need to continue having discussions with not only federal regulators, but also state regulators and industry. We have to get this right, and certainly, if confirmed, I look forward to working on this at the agency.
Thank you so much, Ranking Member, for that question. I want to underscore that I am a firm believer in responsible innovation. And I believe your analysis regarding Bitcoin and Ether is, as you've described. I'm enthusiastic, if confirmed, about the opportunity to work with the chair and my fellow commissioners as we set out to offer clear and effective guidelines. I'm also thoughtful about the diversity of assets in this particular asset class and their emerging and the nuances of the attributes in this emerging asset class. I am mindful that we will need to engage in something that's commonly utilized by the CFTC, roundtables and conversations that bring constituents from the marketplace and industry, as well as others, to the table to engage in discussions about balancing the interest in supporting responsible innovation with customer protections, transparency, and fairness in the market.
Thank you, Ranking Member Boozman, for that. I think one of the things that Chair Benham recommended was this is something maybe Congress might want to consider. I am concerned about providing a list and not being able to keep up, and I think one of the issues that could be helpful from a regulatory approach is providing clarity on how that decision is made as to what is a digital asset security versus a commodity. But I do want to say this is an area where we've got to get that balance right. I mean, the CFTC's mission is to both promote market vibrancy, but also to do it in a safe way that promotes market integrity, and that's going to be very, very important as you move forward.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Senator Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What a panel and what a chair of this committee. So thank you. The world is beginning to change.
It's about time.
It's about time. Thanks to the four nominees, and Professor Johnson, especially to you. I so enjoyed our conversation yesterday, and to hear the backgrounds and the stories of all of you was just so inspiring. So each in her own way, thank you. You know that CFTC plays a critical role in policing markets, rooting out fraud, promoting stable markets. CFT makes sure the financial system works for families and the economy instead of becoming just an arena for risky bets on Wall Street. We've seen too much of that in the regulatory parts of our government, and this is a new day, and the four of you represent that. So thank you. My first question is Professor Johnson and Inspector General Goldsmith Romero on cryptocurrency. Some people, and there is interest through much of the regulatory structure in this government, the SEC, the Federal Reserve, the OCC, the FDIC, and there should be interest in cooperation among all of you. Some people will say that digital assets represent an innovation that we shouldn't regulate because we want to lead the world, and any regulation crimps innovation. I don't think we have to look back far to see those words used, as Professor Johnson, you and I talked yesterday, about, for instance, about over-the-counter derivatives. Don't regulate them. U.S. will lose its competitive edge. We don't want to stop innovation. We know how profoundly damaging to consumers in our economy that was. So, Professor Johnson, what do you think the CFTC's role should be in protecting consumers in markets from the risks of digital assets? And then the same question for you, Inspector General. So, Professor Johnson.
Thank you so much, Senator Brown, for that question. I want to start where you left off. The families in fragile financial circumstances with limited resources on a regular basis to cover the costs of housing, heating their homes, fuel for their cars, daycare for their kids, food in their refrigerators, and prescription drugs. I'm thoughtful about that particularly vulnerable group of Americans every time I sit down to write about risk management oversight in financial markets. I'm thoughtful about them because the buck stops there. When we make mistakes, it's often they who pay the price. So I would just emphasize a couple of points that you made, Senator Brown, if I may. The first is, it is imperative, in light of how our regulatory architecture works in financial markets, that we ensure collaboration among financial market regulators. As you noted, the alphabet soup of financial market regulators that my 7-year-old son will now even soon be able to describe, the FDIC, the CFTC, the SEC, the OCC, we must act in collaboration. This is a particularly great moment for our nation to appreciate that we are one country. We share an economy, and we share at least one, if not many, common goals: the successful integrity and stability of our markets. I'd also just like to point out one person who we talked about yesterday, whose mission resonates with me and inspires me, former Chair Brooksley Bourne, who looked at the credit derivatives market and simply asked the question, is this something that we should study in the context of understanding how the market works and where the risks lie? And I would just echo that here and underscore the necessity that we do ensure the vibrancy of our markets, but we are also especially mindful about the most vulnerable market participants that are engaged in those markets. In this context, possibly retail market participants.
Inspector General, your comments.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. First of all, regulation is not mutually exclusive of innovation. And we have a situation here where, although the CFTC has the authority to police the spot markets, they don't regulate it and they don't have visibility in it. And as a longstanding federal law enforcement official, I can tell you it is very hard to find fraud if you don't have visibility, you don't have access. I think it's absolutely appropriate to collaborate as much as we can. I used to work at the SEC. I know many people there. They're still my partner today. And I would collaborate. And I think we can do this in the right way to protect customers as best as we can, as much as we can. If Congress wants to consider adding additional protections, including consumer protections, customer protections, particularly for retail customers, I think that would be helpful as well.
Thank you, Inspector General. These investigations, as you suggest, can be exceptionally complex. They can take years to complete, but it's important that CFTC pursue these complex, difficult, hard cases. It really is sorry, the cliche, it really is one step ahead of the sheriff. I mean, so many of these people that want to scam the system, and some of them are making hundreds of millions of dollars doing that, and they aren't maybe your typical scam artists, but really they are, and we know what they did with OTC, with over-the-counter derivatives. We know what many of them are trying to do now, and we really, really need this CFTC, this commission to really take this very seriously in working with those other agencies. I would add, Madam Chair, and then I conclude that there are 3 of us on this committee that also sit on the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, Senator Smith, Senator Warnock, and I don't believe there are any Republicans that are on both. But it's important that there be cooperation. Jurisdiction should not enter into this jurisdictional committee fights, nor should jurisdictional fights enter into it among the alphabet agencies, if you will. So thank you all for your willingness to serve.
Well, thank you so much. And Senator Brown, one of the things that it causes me to be optimistic about us to be able to really address this important area is the fact that you are on this committee and the fact that we do have a joint desire to figure this out. And just as Dodd-Frank figured out how the regulatory agencies can work together, I know we can do the same thing.
Thanks. And you and Senator Bozeman have always been so cooperative on so many things across jurisdictions and party lines, so thank you both.
Well, thank you. I think we have an opportunity to do something really important, so thank you. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations on your nominations, ladies. I appreciate you taking time to appear before our committee today and answer all of our questions. You know, the CFTC's most basic function is to oversee our nation's derivatives markets. America's farmers and ranchers rely on these derivatives markets to hedge risk and protect themselves from losses after a bad year. Our country's agriculture industry is the envy of the world, and each of you will play a vital role in ensuring it stays at the pinnacle. As we learned at the committee's most recent hearing, the CFTC is playing an increasingly larger role in the regulation of digital assets. If confirmed, each of you has a responsibility to do your part as regulators to ensure the U.S. continues to be the global leader in financial innovation. You can do this by communicating clear rules of the road to market participants and not regulating through enforcement. This is a question for all of you. If you keep your answers fairly short, I'd appreciate it. You know, I believe regulation should be used in a targeted way to address market failures. When you think broadly about the digital assets arena, why do you think that CFTC would be well suited to address market failures in this sector? We'll start down on this, and Ms. Romero.
Thank you, Senator. I do think the CFTC is well positioned. They have been a leader, and they've done a nice job of balancing promoting innovation by allowing some new derivative products, while also trying to keep the market free of fraud and manipulation. I also think there's a large number of commodities in the spot market that would fall under that police authority that the CFTC has.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator, for that question. I believe the CFTC is well suited because we have an established track record of operating in similar spaces. That track record includes skills and relationships developed over time, engaging directly with the constituents in the energy and agricultural communities, as well as commercial users and end users, and financial markets. So that's my thought. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. As you know, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission is set up with principles-based regulation, and the reason that's important is because it does serve to foster innovation. In fact, that is within our mission, and that is one of the reasons why the commission would be well-suited to oversee the crypto markets if Congress decides that that's what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just go back to something I mentioned before, which is that the CFTC has been doing this from day one. And the CFTC's markets have stood the test of time over and over again through market failures and crises, and it will do so in the future as well.
Thank you. Ms. Mersinger, like me, you come from a rural state. I know you take a lot of pride in that ag is leading industry in your home of South Dakota, just like it is in my state, Alabama. Confirmed, how will you approach stakeholder engagement, including ag community outreach, as a CFTC commissioner?
Thank you, Senator. And I've had some experience in this setting. As a designated federal officer for our Agriculture Advisory Committee, I stay in constant contact with our agricultural stakeholders, reaching out to them, learning more about how they're using the markets, whether or not the markets are working. And I plan to continue doing that. I'll have a very open door policy. I also look forward to getting out and meeting farmers and ranchers on their land, on their turf. And while I'm very familiar with many of the Midwestern crops, I look forward to visiting the southern states to learn more about southern agriculture production. Thank you.
We'll be glad to have you. Ms. Pham, you spent time as a CFTC as a senior staffer, and from the powerful personal statement you shared today, I know that stakeholder outreach is near and dear to your heart. How will you reach out to our nation's ag community in your role as CFTC commissioner, if confirmed?
Thank you. So first of all, I love to travel, so I do hope that I also get an invitation to come on out, and that includes a football game, too. Now, I'll say that one of my favorite parts of the job when I was at the commission previously was meeting with our ag producers and growers and our end users. It's a privilege to hear from people who are in the real world and who are just trying to run their businesses and grow jobs and the economy. So I look forward to that, and it's the same reason why I've enjoyed meeting with clients over these past years as well.
Thank all of you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator Thune.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In recent years, South Dakota's cattle producers have been deeply concerned about market volatility and potential market manipulation. If confirmed as commissioners, what would you do to protect the viability of cattle and other agricultural markets while also ensuring that hedging tools are available and priced correctly? And Ms. Mersinger, given your agricultural background, This is a subject I think you know well. Let's start with you.
Thank you, Senator. And yes, as you mentioned, I do know this well, and I'm keenly aware of the concerns in the cattle markets. I think the most important thing here is transparency, and the best way to ensure that is through constant communication, and that's with the producers, the staff at the CFTC, and the exchanges as well. Because at the end of the day, we need these markets to work in their role as price setting and risk management tools. And that's something that, if confirmed, I look forward to continue working on.
Other nominees, thoughts on that?
Senator, thanks so much for that question. I want to echo my fellow nominees' reflections. We've had lots of time together to talk about some of these questions, and we agree she is an expert. So thank you for that question. I will be learning a lot about cattle pricing transparency when I take on this new role, if I should be confirmed. But I hope to bring all of my expertise in the context that you mentioned, ensuring transparency in pricing, ensuring that the markets work for the market participants. And I'd also just underscore that with the recent COVID crisis and growing disruption of geopolitical events, our agricultural markets are critical and central to the success of our economy. So I am happy to support transparency and ensuring markets work effectively.
Senator, I appreciate this is a very serious issue. I watched the cattle hearing that this committee had. Looking forward to learning more about it. Transparency is vitally important in these derivative markets for them to be able to work. You also mentioned manipulation. I am very experienced in investigating market manipulation and fraud. That's an important area to keep these markets working, and I would bring that experience to the Commission.
Thanks.
Senator, I know this is an issue with a lot of focus on it, and there's a lot of issues impacting the cattle industry. There was a slaughterhouse down the mile from my high school when I grew up. Transparency is foundational to U.S. markets and our regulatory framework. So if confirmed, I will work with your office in looking further into this.
Great, thank you. And I just would urge all of you to keep this front and center. It is an issue which is of great interest, not only in farm country, but I think, too, just in terms of the overall, our economy, agriculture is critical, obviously, to our national economy. And I'm a big believer in free markets, but in order for free markets to work, there's got to be competition. And there's a tremendous amount of concentration of power, market power within a handful of firms that are processing of the beef that's raised in this country. So keep an eye on that, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to that again at another time. Just to follow up on my first question, and I don't have a lot of time, but I've seen reports that some cryptocurrency firms are potentially interested in participating in agricultural markets, and I'm wondering what your thoughts on their participation in these traditional markets, and do you believe that they should abide by the same rules and regulations? So if you can summarize your thoughts on that quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. CFTC has a principles-based regulatory framework, and those principles are really important. Do not believe we should be lowering the bar on those, and so otherwise we're not really going to be able to keep market integrity while promoting responsible innovation. So I look forward to learning more on this issue and getting more details and working to make sure we're not lowering the bar.
Thanks so much for that question, Senator. I think ensuring a level playing field has long been a commitment for the CFTC in terms of oversight of markets. And I think your question speaks directly to the necessity of ensuring that I can commit to monitor, if confirmed, I commit to monitor and surveil and be prepared to hear from constituents about their concerns regarding whether or not there's a level playing field.
Thank you, and I would echo my fellow nominees and just add that there is risk in having two sets of rules.
Senator, I believe that markets work best when there's clear and simple rules with common standards. Any changes to market structure need to be careful and thoughtful to avoid market disruption and unintended consequences.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator Braun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being from Indiana, forestry, growing trees, lumber business in general is probably, when you take all the downstream impact from it, is as large as row crops would be. Mostly we produce hardwoods, the lumber futures markets, of course, more associated with 2x4s and such that would be softwood products, but those markets are used sometimes as a hedge, a way. It's been so much volatility with all the demand that was thrown into the system by what we did here to try to get us through COVID. Not sure when we're going to get back to something that is more of a normal pattern, but it did engage several times in the futures market where there were lock limits. In other words, those are designed to put a brake on volatile trading, but when it happens that often, it begs the question, are they in the right place? Do you need to adjust them? And I'd like each witness to actually comment about, is that something where you should intercede in times like we've just gone through? And does this particular market look like it needs something done more long-term so that you don't have markets frozen up in a way that it makes liquidity difficult and people to maneuver accordingly? Start here on this end.
Thank you, Senator Braun. My highest priority, if confirmed, would be to make sure these derivatives markets are working, that they are open and fair and transparent, and they allow the hedging of risk that your constituents need. So I think part of it is really monitoring and conducting surveillance at the CFTC into these markets to understand what exactly is going on, being able to look at the trading activity, being in communication with market participants, as well as the SROs. And then it's also to look to see if there's any kind of manipulation, anyone trying to take advantage of the market during times of volatility, which can sometimes happen. So those will all be things that I would be looking at if confirmed. And I'm happy to get more details about this and talk with you and your office further.
Thank you so much for that question, Senator. It's a very thoughtful question that really requires us to be engaged in attempting to understand the market well. And your question demonstrates that the critical pieces of oversight, or pieces to the oversight puzzle that the CFTC maneuvers. I would note that in moments of increased volatility in markets or disruption, the CFT typically engages in heightened surveillance, monitoring more closely on the phone, folks on the phone line to ensure that they have a clear picture. They have great visibility into markets, seeking superior and real-time data to ensure that if there is activity or misconduct, or if there is activity, misconduct or inappropriate trading activity, that is seen to right away. It's imperative to see the downstream effects on counterparties and to think carefully about whether, as you described, markets are working effectively. So I can commit, if confirmed, to certainly being engaged in careful monitoring of markets and ensuring proper oversight.
Thank you, Senator Braun. What I will say is I was at the CFTC during the pandemic when we were seeing the record volatilities, and I'm aware of the number of days that they had limit down days, and it was definitely a concern, something that we monitored very closely. I can tell you that there's staff at the CFTC that pay very close attention to this, keep in touch with the stakeholders and the exchanges to make sure the markets function. And certainly, if confirmed, I'd be happy to talk to those experts at the commission and report back to your office any information I can provide as to how the lumber markets are functioning at this time.
Senator, in addition to what my fellow nominees have stated, the way how limits are set is an important issue. And I think that the CFTC, with its different processes around how limits are set and also with the exchanges, the importance of public engagement throughout that process is something that definitely should be upheld and is something that, if confirmed, I look forward to working with the chairman and others on.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you very much. I believe we have Senator Hoeven with us online. Senator Hoeven? Senator Hoeven, are you with us?
I'm sorry, I thought I had unmuted. Maybe it got muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do. Every one of us does that at least once every day.
I
So
know,
welcome to
got
the
it
club.
exactly. Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me start with a question for all the witnesses. Essentially, in the your subcommittee put out a report, Managing Climate Risk in the U.S. Financial System. And I want to get your response in regard to that. In North Dakota, we produce 1.1 million barrels of oil a day. We produce huge amounts of natural gas. We have coal-fired electricity. And so I'd like each of you to respond on whether you think there should be preferences for one commodity fuel type over another in terms of this climate risk report.
Senator, thank you. And North Dakota has a special place in the hearts of my family, as I said in my statement. You know, climate's a hard issue that needs to be thoughtfully studied. And, you know, I believe in the power of the markets to provide solutions here. And there's opportunities to have new products to deal with the physical and transition risks. So thank you.
Senator, just to echo what my fellow nominee said, I think that it's important that our work at the CFTC remains neutral as to the commodity, that we are making sure that these markets function regardless of the underlying asset.
Thank you so much, Senator, for that question. I believe that the CFTC has a long history of even-handed engagement in the context of markets, and I would imagine that that tradition should continue, and understand your question and agree that there should be no preferences.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven. The derivatives markets are incredibly important in the energy sector to help manage that risk. And as we move forward, I think the CFTC's role is just to really try to engage and understand that risk and to be fully engaged with stakeholders, to listen to all sides and look at the facts. And if confirmed, that's what I would do.
All right, Ms. Mersinger, excuse me, understand that you worked with Senator Thune for quite a while as a member of his staff. That's great. So you certainly understand agriculture in our part of the world. Tell me, you know, what can the CFTC do that really is going to help our farmers and ranchers manage their risk? I mean, it's a hard thing to do. What can the CFTC do, in your opinion, to really make a difference for them?
Thank you, Senator Hoeven. And I will say that I have a number of family members in North Dakota and enjoyed many long car trips up north as a child. So very
well, we love South Dakota. We love our neighbor state.
As far as, you know, how we work with the America's farmers and ranchers to help them hedge risk and use the CFTC markets, it is important to note that that's where our market started, and the idea was to ensure that farmers and ranchers were able to have adequate price discovery in their markets and also the tools to hedge their risk. And we should never get away from that, and we need to always be engaged with those stakeholders and to ensure that those markets are working that way. The other thing I would add is we do have an Office of Education and Outreach, and I think that we could use that office to better engage with the farmers and ranchers to help them understand these markets and how they can be useful.
Thank you. Ms. Romero, just a wrap-up question here. Address cryptocurrency and how we're going to regulate that and give consumers, you know, some knowledge of how it works. And I mean, it's just incredibly complicated. I think people are really scratching their heads. What can CFTC do to really help in that realm?
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. I think a lot of people are getting confused by this. There's been this explosive growth, particularly in the retail market, where you have people who are buying crypto on a phone app who may not understand there's a lack of customer protections, particularly if they're doing a transaction side by side with another transaction that does have the customer protections. So I think the CFTC should continue to be a leader. I think they should help do the best they can to keep the market as safe as possible. They do have authority to police the spot market, but they do have limited visibility, and I think this is an area where Congress could help. But I do think we have to balance, and this is balance the mission. This is what I'll be grounded in if I'm confirmed, of promoting part of the mission to promote vibrant markets while also keeping them safe and doing it in a way that promotes market integrity.
Thank you. Thank you to all the witnesses, and thank you to you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you so much. I believe we do not have other senators wishing to ask questions at the moment. So let me thank you again for being here today. And again, I'm excited about the quality of the 4 nominees in front of us. We'll be working to move your nominations forward as quickly as possible. This concludes today's hearing. The record will remain open until tomorrow at 5 p.m. for members to submit additional questions or statements, and the hearing is adjourned.